Marcus stood at the podium of his firm's annual gala, in a custom suit I never would have been able to afford, accepting an award for entrepreneurial excellence, and in his 4-minute speech, he thanked his parents, his mentors, his team, and his God. He did not thank me. He did not thank the woman who had worked double shifts at a hospital reception desk for 6 years so he could focus on his MBA. He did not thank the woman who had skipped her own dental appointments to make sure his tuition cleared on time. He did not thank the woman who had eaten rice and frozen vegetables 4 nights a week so that Marcus could attend networking dinners and build relationships with people who now applauded him. He thanked everyone in that room except the person who built the floor he was standing on. But here's what Marcus didn't know when he smiled into that microphone. I was sitting at table 11. I had been invited by his business partner, David, who had always liked me and had no idea what was happening inside our marriage. And in my bag, I had a folder. A very organized, very thorough, very damaging folder. By the end of that night, Marcus's award would be the least interesting thing that happened. Let me take you back to where it actually started, because this story doesn't begin at a gala. It begins in a 1-bedroom apartment in 2017 with a broken radiator and a shared Netflix account and a man who told me I was his entire world. Marcus and I met in our mid-20s. He had ambition, genuine, burning ambition, and almost no money, which at the time felt romantic and temporary. He was going to get his MBA, launch his consulting firm, change his life. He just needed time. And support. And someone who believed in him completely. I believed in him completely. I was working full-time as a hospital receptionist. Not glamorous, not lucrative, but stable, which was what we needed. So we made a plan together, the way couples do. I would carry us financially while he studied and built. Once the firm was established, it would be my turn. I would go back to school. I would pursue what I had put on hold. We would build something together. For 6 years, I kept my end of that agreement. I paid the rent. I paid his tuition installments when the loans fell short. I bought the groceries, covered the utilities, and one time I have never told anyone about, I sold a piece of jewelry my grandmother had left me to cover a registration fee he needed immediately, or he would lose his spot in a competitive placement program. I never told him about the jewelry. I didn't want him to feel guilty. That was my first mistake. You cannot protect someone from accountability indefinitely without eventually becoming invisible to them. By year 5, the firm was real. Clients were coming in. Marcus was hiring. The apartment became a house. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, I stopped being his partner and started being the furniture. Comfortable, familiar, easy to stop seeing. And then Alexa told me everything. Not a person named Alexa. The device. The little cylinder on our kitchen counter that Marcus had set up for his morning routines and that I had largely ignored. I came home early from a shift that had been cut short, a Thursday evening in March, and Marcus wasn't there. But his phone call was still playing through the Alexa speaker. He had left without ending it. I stood in my own kitchen and listened to my husband tell someone, her name I would learn, was Priya, that he had been planning to restructure his personal life for the past 8 months. That he felt like he had outgrown his current situation. That he wanted someone who matched where he was now. Someone with ambition, energy, drive. He said, and I will quote this exactly because it is burned into me permanently, she's not bad. She's just not someone I can picture at the table anymore. Not someone he could picture at the table. I had bought that table. I turned off the speaker. I went upstairs. I changed out of my uniform. And I came back down and made dinner, because Marcus would be home soon and I had just made the decision, quietly, completely, that I was not going to react. Not yet. Not until I understood exactly what I was dealing with. He came home at 7. He kissed my cheek. He said dinner smelled good. He asked about my day. I told him it had been fine. Over the following weeks, I watched him with completely new eyes, and what I saw was a man who had already, in his mind, left. He was pleasant enough, distantly kind, but he was managing me, the way you manage a situation you're planning to exit cleanly. He complimented me occasionally with the deliberate warmth of someone who is building a paper trail of being a good husband before a divorce attorney asks about his behavior. He bought me flowers twice in 1 month. He had not bought me flowers in 2 years. And then came the dinner party. Marcus hosted a small gathering for 4 of his closest business associates and their partners. I cooked. Of course I cooked. I always cooked. And I served, and I smiled, and I listened to these people talk about growth and vision and the future. At one point, one of the wives asked me what I did, and before I could answer, Marcus said, smoothly and without hesitation, "She keeps the home running. You know how it is. Keeps the home running." 6 years of sacrifice reduced to a domestic function at a dinner party. I smiled. I refilled her wine glass. And inside, something very final and very cold clicked into place. I want to be honest with you about what the next 10 weeks looked like because it was not dramatic. It was quiet and methodical and, in retrospect, the most focused I have ever been in my life. I contacted a family law attorney on a Monday morning from my car in the parking lot of the hospital before my shift. Her name was Carol. She was 53, had handled over 300 divorce cases, and had the energy of someone who had heard every version of this story and found them all equally actionable. Carol told me something important in our first meeting. In our state, contribution to a spouse's education and career development, documented financial contribution, is legally relevant to the division of assets in a divorce. What I had done for 6 years wasn't just love. It was, with the right documentation, an investment. So I started documenting. I pulled every bank statement I could access going back to the beginning of our marriage. I compiled the tuition payments, cross-referenced with my own payroll records to show they had come from my income. I found the receipts I had kept. I have always kept receipts, it's a habit from being poor, and I organized them into a timeline. The rent, the groceries, the utilities, even the dental appointments I had canceled, because those had been on a joint calendar. And the jewelry. I found the pawn receipt in a box in the back of my closet. $63 for a bracelet my grandmother had worn for 30 years. I photographed it and added it to the folder. Meanwhile, Marcus began a conversation he clearly thought was gentle and compassionate. He started talking about checking in on our relationship, about whether we were still aligned. He used the word evolve 4 times in one weekend, which I can only assume he had workshopped with someone. He was building toward telling me he wanted a divorce. I could see the architecture of the conversation from a mile away. He was going to frame it as mutual, natural, a gentle uncoupling between 2 people who had simply grown in different directions. He was not going to mention Priya. He was not going to mention the 8 months of planning. And he was absolutely not going to mention the conversation I had overheard, the one where I had been described as someone he could no longer picture at the table. The point of no return came when Carol informed me, after reviewing his recent financial filings, that Marcus had begun transferring portions of the firm's early-stage equity into a separately held account, one established 8 months ago, around the same time he had apparently begun restructuring his personal life. He was moving assets, quietly, before any divorce proceedings were initiated, which would have made them subject to disclosure. He was going to leave me, and he was going to leave me with as little as legally possible. That was when David called. David, his business partner, whom I mentioned at the beginning. David, who still liked me, who had always treated me like a real person and not a domestic appliance. He was hosting the firm's annual gala in 3 weeks and wanted to know if Marcus and I would be attending together. He specifically said he hoped I would come, that the partners' table wouldn't feel right without me. I told David I would absolutely be there. And then I called Carol. Table 11. Cream linens. A centerpiece I would have chosen myself, actually, if anyone had asked. I wore a dress Marcus had never seen. I had bought it 2 weeks earlier with money from my own account, an account he didn't know I had opened in my name only, because Carol had advised me to begin separating finances quietly and immediately. I arrived after Marcus, which was intentional. I watched him from across the room before he saw me, standing with Priya, who was there, of course, as a colleague, introduced to no one as anything more. She was everything he had said he wanted now. Sharp, polished, expensive looking. He saw me and went very still. I waved. I smiled. I went to find David. The evening moved through its program: cocktails, dinner, remarks, the award. Marcus's speech. The 4 minutes I described at the beginning. The applause. The handshakes. And the notable, complete, absolute absence of my name. David leaned over to me during the applause and said, quietly, "You know this firm wouldn't exist without you. I hope he told you that tonight." I looked at David and I said, "He didn't, but I think the room is about to understand it." When Marcus stepped away from the podium, David, per our arrangement, which I had proposed to him 2 days earlier and which he had agreed to after I showed him a portion of what I had found, invited me to say a few words. "A surprise tribute," he announced, "from Marcus's wife." The room applauded warmly. Marcus looked at me from across the stage with an expression I can only describe as controlled panic. I walked to the microphone. I thanked everyone for a lovely evening. I said how proud I was of what Marcus had built. And then I said that I wanted to share something because this night was about recognizing contributions, and I had a contribution I wanted the room to understand. I had printed a single summary document, 1 page, clean, professional, prepared by Carol's office. It outlined the financial timeline, the 6 years of documented support, the tuition payments sourced from my income, the asset transfers initiated 8 months prior, and the legal notice of divorce proceedings that had been filed that morning. The last part was the one Marcus didn't know about yet. David had already placed a copy at each seat at the partners' table, per my request, 40 minutes before I stood at that microphone. Marcus's attorneys, his partners, and the 4 most important clients of his firm had all been reading it quietly during dessert. I watched Marcus read the last line of the document. The color left his face in a way that I don't think I will ever forget. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even shock, exactly. It was the specific expression of a person who has understood, in a single moment, that they have catastrophically underestimated someone they thought they knew completely. I thanked the room again. I walked off the stage. And I went to find my coat. Ed Carol. The divorce took 11 months. In our state, with the documentation Carol had compiled, the financial contributions, the undisclosed asset transfers, the timeline, the settlement reflected what I had actually put into that marriage. I won't give you the number, but I will tell you that it covered the cost of the graduate program I enrolled in the following September. The firm survived, but not entirely intact. 2 of the partners asked pointed questions about the asset transfers during the fallout, and the answers Marcus gave were apparently not satisfying. One of them quietly exited the partnership 6 months later. The firm's growth stalled for over a year. Priya, I later heard through people we both knew, ended things within 3 months of the gala. Whether that says something about her or about Marcus, I'll let you decide. I finished my degree. I work now in healthcare administration, which was always where I wanted to be. I have an apartment that is mine, a schedule that is mine, and a life in which nobody's dreams come at the expense of mine. What I want you to understand, and I mean this as plainly as I can, is that I did not do any of this out of cruelty. I did it because a person who is owed something has every right to collect it. I had subsidized a man's entire transformation for 6 years and been scheduled for quiet disposal as a reward. The least I was entitled to was honesty. When I couldn't get honesty, I got organized instead. There is a version of this story where I confronted him the night I heard the phone call, where I cried and begged and gave him the chance to explain. I've thought about that version. It would have ended with me receiving much less and understanding much less about who he actually was. The version I chose ended with me at a gala, in a dress he'd never seen, collecting what was mine. So I want to ask you, and I want you to actually sit with this question. If you had been standing in that kitchen, listening to someone you had sacrificed for describe you as someone they couldn't picture at the table anymore, what would you have done? Would you have walked out that night? Would you have confronted him immediately? Or would you have turned off that speaker, gone upstairs, changed your clothes, and started building a folder? Tell me. Because something tells me you already know exactly what you would have done. And something tells me it wouldn't have been begging.